While Lorraine Willis lay unconscious in the ICU, her son-in-law filed a new deed, without her name on it. He even forged the notary. By the time she got home, her mail was gone, her accounts drained, and her house no longer hers. But he didn't know she'd kept the original deed locked away since 1985. He called it paperwork. She called it theft. And when the investigators arrived, she handed them the key and the proof. "All right? Before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor, subscribe and tell us where you're watching from." The beeping of machines never fully fades in the ICU. It hums like a second heartbeat, mechanical, indifferent. Lorraine Willis lay in the hospital bed, eyes half shut, ribs sore with every breath. Tubes, monitors, and the sterile chill of antiseptic surrounded her. She couldn't speak much yet, but she could hear, "Don't worry, it's handled now." The voice was male, polished, slightly nasal, Ryan. Lorraine kept her eyes closed. The morphine made everything feel wrapped in cotton, but that voice cut through it. She listened. "You're sure she never notarized anything else?" came Erica's whisper. Tight, urgent. Ryan gave a quiet scoff. "She doesn't even know what month it is." Lorraine's fingers twitched under the blanket. 7 days later, a wheelchair rolled across the ceramic tile of her front walkway. Lorraine inhaled the Florida humidity, like it owed her something. The light was too bright, and her legs still weak, but she was home. Erica fussed with her cardigan. "Let's get you in and settled. Ryan set up everything for your mail. The bills, all the paperwork." Lorraine blinked slowly. "My paperwork." Erica's smile was tight. "Of course. Everything's been handled." Inside, the house smelled different, too clean, scrubbed of its usual rhythm. A stack of mail sat on the kitchen table, not where Lorraine left it. Fresh files. A new printer, humming faintly in the corner. Her home felt reorganized. Ryan appeared with a manila envelope. "Glad you're back on your feet, Lorraine." He handed it over like a casual afterthought. "Just some formalities. Nothing serious. Hospital follow-ups, insurance, and just reconfirming a few authorizations." Lorraine didn't open the envelope. She looked at him for 3 seconds too long. "I'll go through it later." Ryan forced a pleasant laugh. "No rush." That night, alone in her room, Lorraine turned on her bedside lamp. Low, amber, familiar. She peeled open the envelope slowly, as if it might bite. Inside, a new power of attorney form. Title transfer paperwork. A notary stamp too clean, too flat. Her fingers steadied. She opened the top drawer of her dresser and removed a plain metal key taped to the underside. In the hall closet, behind a stack of faded towels, sat the fireproof lockbox. It had been there for 22 years. She turned the key. Inside lay the original deed. Her full name, signed in long, confident strokes, notarized in 1985, with a physical stamp, deep grooves, still visible from where the embosser had pressed. She held the paper to her chest. Her hands trembled, not from age, not from illness, but from clarity. 2 days later, Clay Martin leaned against her kitchen counter, coffee mug in hand, faded baseball cap pushed back on his silver hair. "You're quiet," he said. Lorraine stirred her tea with surgical precision. "I'm thinking." Clay nodded slowly. "That's when people should worry." She slid a piece of folded paper across the table. Clay opened it, skimmed the highlighted sections on the copy of Ryan's version of the deed. "You didn't sign this," he said. "No," Lorraine replied, voice like stone. Clay looked up. "And they filed it?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Instead, she stood slower than she used to, but steady, walked to the hallway closet, pulled out the original again and placed it beside the fake. 2 papers, one true, one fraudulent, one history, one theft. Clay let out a low whistle. "Damn, they really think you're too old to notice." Lorraine's eyes didn't leave the page. "They forgot who built this house." Clay watched her, something hardening in his gaze. "What do you want to do?" Lorraine closed the lockbox, turned the key and placed it in her pocket. "First," she said quietly, "we stop pretending. Delia Grant's law office sat just off Bee Ridge Road, wedged between a shuttered chiropractor's clinic and an insurance agency that hadn't updated its sign since 1993. Lorraine liked that. Quiet places. Unpretentious ones. The receptionist buzzed her in without fanfare. The moment Delia saw the manila folder tucked beneath Lorraine's arm, she stood. "Please tell me that's what I think it is," Delia said, voice clipped but kind. Lorraine lowered herself into the worn leather chair across from her. Her fingers trembled slightly as she passed the original deed across the desk. Delia didn't open it immediately. She looked Lorraine dead in the eye. "Is this the only copy? The only real one?" Delia flipped it open and let out a breath through her nose. Stamped in 85, proper seal, commission ID. Chain of title intact. She tapped her finger against the embossed notary seal. "This isn't something they can undo with a printer and a bad forgery." Lorraine placed a second page beside it. Ryan's version. Delia's eyes narrowed as she scanned the flat grayscale notary mark. They used a photocopied seal. No embossment. Fonts too modern. Commission number doesn't match state registry. She sat back slowly. "That's felony-level fraud. And we can prove it." Lorraine didn't blink. "I don't want a courtroom drama." Delia nodded. "Then we do this surgically." Quiet precision. The two women sat in silence a moment, the air between them taut with mutual respect. In the next hour, they combed through Lorraine's old tax documents, some filed neatly, others rescued from the bottom of kitchen drawers. Lorraine produced a shoebox of HOA mail, most of which she'd stopped receiving since her hospital stay. Delia laid it out like evidence. Redirection of mail is another lever. It builds the case. "You have dates?" Lorraine checked her planner, flipping through pages inked with tidy cursive. "I stopped getting the quarterly statement after March. My hospital admission was in June." Delia tapped her pen on the desk, thinking. They used the silence to slip in the noise. Lorraine reached into her purse and pulled out a folded bank statement. "I didn't make this withdrawal." Delia leaned in. "How much?" $3,000. Cash. "When?" "3 days after I went into the ICU." Delia's expression darkened. "They were confident you wouldn't wake up. They made photocopies of everything, each sheet labeled, time-stamped, annotated." Delia moved with the precision of someone who'd waged this battle before. She pulled up the state notary registry on her laptop, cross-referencing the forged name Ryan had used. She turned the screen toward Lorraine. "That notary died 2 years ago." Lorraine didn't flinch. "Then he forged a ghost." Delia looked at her with a mix of awe and fury. "This is more than elder abuse. This is a full-scale property fraud, and if they did this once, they've probably covered other tracks." Lorraine tucked the original deed back into her bag. "I want it all exposed, but no drama. No leaks, just facts." Delia nodded once, slowly. "We'll keep the circle tight. You, me, and whoever you trust." "Clay?" Lorraine said immediately. "And that's it." Delia closed her legal pad. "I'll begin drafting the revocation of power of attorney, and start the process of freezing any property transfer filings they may have made. But if you want to stay ahead, we'll need more than this." Lorraine met her gaze. "Then we go digging." Back at home, the late afternoon light cast long shadows through the blinds. Lorraine moved slowly, deliberately. She pulled out the bank records again. A second unauthorized withdrawal caught her eye, smaller, just $800, but on the same day as the first. She checked the memo line. ATM Clark and Swift branch. She had never used that branch in her life. The sound of a printer whirring drifted down the hall. Ryan's machine again, probably churning out another batch of falsehoods. Lorraine sat at the kitchen table, sliding her finger across the glossy statement. The number pattern of the withdrawal had a trailing sequence, possibly tied to a camera feed or transaction ID. She circled it, then stood, walked to the drawer near the fridge, pulled out the small black Canon digital camera she hadn't touched since 2016. Inside an SD card, still intact. She didn't know yet what it held, but she knew this much. Ryan had left a trail, and Lorraine had every intention of finding the entire map. 6 months earlier, Ryan and Erica had moved into the guest house like they were sliding into a pair of shoes already broken in. Lorraine hadn't objected at the time, not because she agreed, but because her strength had started to slip in places she didn't yet admit aloud. A knee that didn't bend like it used to. A voice that felt thinner when she raised it, and Erica, ever the opportunist, had stepped into that silence like a squatter claiming an empty room. "It just makes sense, Mom," she'd said back in January. "You're slowing down. We're right here to help, and Harper can use her room when she visits. The guest house is barely used." That wasn't true. Lorraine used it plenty for storage, for potting soil and Christmas bins, and on occasion for solitude. But she'd let them have it, under one unspoken condition: they respected the house that built them. Now she saw how easily they'd cross that line. She stood on the back patio staring at the small detached structure 30 feet away, pale stucco, white trim, a roofline that used to leak in the northeast corner until Clay fixed it in '04. The blinds were drawn. New curtains, not hers, a different porch light. Ryan emerged from the side door carrying a trash bag, wearing her late husband's old fishing hat, like it belonged to him. Lorraine didn't wave. Inside, the main house felt thinner somehow. Too much space in the mailbox. Too little sound from the hall. She opened the mail drawer in the kitchen, empty. She hadn't seen a social security statement or HOA letter in months. That night, she sat with Clay on the screened-in porch. The mosquitoes stayed out. The doubt did not. "They moved in too fast," Lorraine murmured, staring at the lit guest house. Clay sipped his beer. "They planned it." Lorraine nodded. "They stopped handing me my mail in April. Claimed they were streamlining. Erica said she'd just handle it." Clay raised an eyebrow. "You let her?" "I was tired," Lorraine said, more to herself than him. The next morning, she pulled out her planner, the one with the red faux leather cover and brass corners, and flipped to a blank page. Top left corner, she wrote, 8:10 a.m., no mail again. A few lines down, Ryan left with a box labeled County Records. It was a system she hadn't used since her transcription days. Clean code, structured notes, observations without commentary. Just fact. Emotionless paper trails could survive the court of law far better than broken trust ever could. Later that week, Ryan sauntered through the kitchen like it was part of his lease. He opened the fridge, grabbed a soda, then glanced over at Lorraine with the smirk she'd come to dread. "You know," he said, "I read this article about how cognitive decline sneaks up on folks your age. Real subtle stuff. Forgetting dates, misplacing forms, even imagining conversations." Lorraine met his eyes. "That so?" He cracked the can. "Yeah. Sad. Really. But good thing you've got us here to stay on top of things." She let him walk out without a word. But that night she logged his words in her planner under a new code, RMIF. Ryan manipulating, insinuating frailty. On Sunday, Harper came by, unannounced. Lorraine hadn't seen her since spring. Taller now, more sure of herself, but with that same drifting look in her eyes, like she was trying to read people the way she read textbooks, analytically, without emotion. They sat at the kitchen table. Lorraine offered iced tea. Harper declined. There was a long pause. "Are you okay, Grandma?" Lorraine blinked. "Of course. Why?" Harper shrugged. "I don't know. Mom and Dad are different lately. Weird about money. And every time I ask something, they act like I'm being dramatic." Lorraine reached over and gently touched her hand. "Sometimes people talk fast when they're hiding something." Harper looked at her, then looked down. "I miss how the house used to feel," she said quietly. Lorraine didn't respond, but that night she left a new note in her planner. Page J, asking questions. Not ready yet, but listening. A few days later, Lorraine was walking back from the mailbox, again, empty, when she noticed the trash bins outside the guest house. One of the lids was ajar. Inside, shredded paper, still faintly warm from the document shredder she hadn't even realized had been purchased. She reached in, gently lifting a scrap. It was part of her old tax return. The lines still visible: primary residence, Lorraine M. Willis. She looked up slowly at the guest house window. The curtain twitched. Lorraine didn't move. She folded the scrap in half and tucked it into her planner. Next to it she added a new note. Shredding evidence. Timeline accelerated. Camera next. The cursor blinked in steady rhythm as Delia navigated the Sarasota County Property Appraiser's website. Her reading glasses perched low on her nose, a pen between her teeth. She moved with the kind of irritation only bureaucracy can ignite. "Let me guess," she muttered. "They banked on no one your age checking online records." Lorraine sat across from her, arms crossed, jaw tight. "I wasn't supposed to wake up, let alone type." The screen loaded. Delia squinted, then leaned in. Jesus Christ, there it was. Parcel ID 214T7083000T. Single family residence. Assessed value $30,94,000. Owner of record Jameson Trust. Managing member Ryan C. Jameson. Lorraine leaned forward like she'd been punched. "They made it a trust, filed through a fast-tracking portal," Delia said. "It's legal if you have a valid title change, which they don't." She clicked on the filing metadata tab, scrolling until she found the submission timestamp. June 14th, 2:12 p.m. Lorraine's lips parted. "That's when I was intubated." Delia's knuckles went white on the mouse. "That's digital proof of fraud. You were medically unconscious. You couldn't have signed or consented to any legal instrument. They planned the window," Lorraine said quietly. "Down to the hour." Delia moved fast. She requested the filing documents from the clerk's office, then cross-referenced the listed notary on the fraudulent deed. "Cassandra R. Walsh," she read aloud. "Let's see if she exists." 10 minutes later, she was on the phone with a contact at the state notary registry. Lorraine watched her stone still as Delia's face shifted from skepticism to disgust. She hung up. "Walsh is real, but she works for a title company in Jacksonville. She confirmed she's never met Ryan, never notarized anything for anyone named Willis." Lorraine's breath caught. So even the notary was forged. "She's emailing an affidavit," Delia said, "and I'm issuing a subpoena for her official stamp record. That'll confirm it was never used that day." Ryan's toast. Back home, Lorraine changed every password she owned, starting with her email, then her online bank, and finally the digital login for her Medicare portal. Each time she clicked submit, a wave of resolve replaced whatever exhaustion still clung to her. She called her credit union and froze her accounts. Then she drove to the post office, slow but determined, and filed for a private P.O. box. All mail rerouted, all statements secure. No more invisible hands on her paper trail. That evening, Clay let himself into the back porch and set a small cardboard box on the kitchen table. "Best Buy had it on sale," he said, pulling out a tiny camera no bigger than a lipstick tube. "Infrared, motion activated, sends alerts to your phone." Lorraine raised an eyebrow. "You think they'll come into the study? They already took your mailbox, your guest house, your silence. That study's next." She led him to the room, the one with the antique desk, her genealogy books and the filing cabinet. Ryan had once offered to digitize. Clay tucked the camera into the corner bookshelf, aiming it at the desk and drawer. "This'll see everything, even in the dark." Lorraine stepped back and looked at the lens. "Let's give them the chance to prove me right." Later that night, Lorraine opened her planner and wrote one clean line. 6:47 p.m., trap set. She closed it, tucked it beside the original deed, and slid both back into the lockbox. Down the hallway, she heard faint movement from the guest house, the back door creaking open, Ryan's laugh, low and smug, Erica's voice, shrill and impatient, and then for the first time in weeks, Lorraine smiled, not wide, not soft, the kind of smile that knew exactly how long the fuse had left. The notary's pen moved slowly, deliberately, across the revocation form. Lorraine watched each stroke with quiet satisfaction, not joy, not revenge, just the clean, exact feeling of a correction being made. "You understand this fully revokes any previous powers granted?" the notary asked, eyes scanning Lorraine's face for hesitation. "I do," Lorraine said. Her voice didn't tremble. Delia slid a second document across the table, filed electronically with the state, time-stamped. "We'll courier the hard copy to the clerk's office today." Lorraine signed again, her pen steady, a final signature. Her name, her hand, her control. When it was done, Delia leaned back. No more power of attorney, no access, no rights. They're ghosts on paper now. By the time Lorraine returned home, the sun was low behind the guest house, casting long shadows across the backyard. She moved slowly but purposefully, the revocation letter tucked into a sealed envelope in her purse. Erica was in the kitchen, sipping from one of Lorraine's favorite mugs, barefoot, humming to herself. "Hey Mom, you're back early." Lorraine placed the envelope on the counter without a word. Erica picked it up, opened it, read the first paragraph, and froze. "What is this?" Lorraine's tone was calm. Too calm. "You're not on anything anymore." Erica's mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. She looked as if she expected a different version of Lorraine, frail, doddering, unsure. This version stood taller, spoke with measured control. "I never gave you power of attorney. Not legally, not consciously, and certainly not willingly." Erica's hands trembled. "We were helping." "No," Lorraine said, her voice razor-sharp. "You were replacing." She walked out of the kitchen, not waiting for a response. From the hallway she heard Erica's voice crack. "Ryan, this complicates things." Lorraine looked at him like he was a housefly that had landed on a church hymn book. "Complicates your fraud?" she asked softly. His eyes flicked to the hallway. "Don't say that. I'll say what I want," Lorraine replied. "It's my house, my name," and my voice finally back. Up its stairs, the hallway vent carried sound too well. Harper sat on the floor outside her bedroom, earbuds unplugged, phone in her lap. She heard every word: fraud, forgery, revoked. Pieces began connecting in her mind like magnetic tiles. The strange mail disappearances, her mother's sudden control of the finances, the guest house taking root like a parasite. Harper stared at the floorboards, then quietly rose to her feet. Lorraine spent the next morning placing fraud alerts with every financial institution she'd ever done business with. She spoke clearly, recorded call after call, noted every case number in her planner. She locked her credit, reported the withdrawals, flagged the trust as unauthorized. Her voice never wavered. Each rep, each bank officer, each government clerk heard the same thing. Lorraine M. Willis is not a woman to be erased. That afternoon, she opened her planner and wrote, "PAOA revoked." Lines cut. He stood outside the guest house like a Nain waiting for the ground to tell him its secrets. Erica, drained and furious, paced the living room, her voice a hiss behind the curtain. "She's ruining everything. That old woman is going to cost us." Clay walked up the back path, holding 2 letters and a USB stick. He handed them to Lorraine with a nod. "From the county. Certified mail, and that's the digital filing copy." Delia asked for it. Lorraine took the USB, looked down at the envelope, then back toward the glowing guest house. "Let them panic," she said. "I'm not finished yet." Ryan opened the front door with a well-rehearsed smile, the kind meant for bank managers, small-town reporters, and apparently cease-and-desist attorneys. Delia didn't smile back. She stood with her heels planted on the guest house's concrete step, cease-and-desist letter in hand, her ID clipped neatly to her jacket pocket. "Ryan Jameson," she said. He glanced behind him, then nodded. "Yes, I'm sure there's some kind of mix-up." "There isn't," Delia said, stepping forward and holding out the letter. "This is a formal notice regarding your unauthorized representation of Lorraine M. Willis. Effective immediately, you are ordered to cease and desist any further management, access, or representation of her legal, medical, or financial affairs." Ryan took the envelope but didn't open it. His smile cracked at the edges. "Look, I think you're misunderstanding. We're family. We were just..." Delia cut him off. "You're not a fiduciary. You're not a trustee. You're not an agent. What you are is under scrutiny." Erica appeared behind him, arms crossed. "This is unnecessary. It was a misunderstanding. We were trying to help." Delia didn't move. "Then help by stepping back." Young Lorraine watched the exchange from the window of the main house, a small audio recorder resting discreetly beside the sugar jar. She clicked it on. She hadn't missed a word of the conversation. and she didn't intend to. Every interaction now lived on tape, from the moment Ryan entered the kitchen to the second Erica sighed and called her confused again. It was all evidence, not just for courts, but for memory, because they'd tried to rewrite hers and now she was archiving theirs. She labeled the file 6A C and D served, reactionia guilty. At the county building the next morning, Delia met with the records supervisor, a woman in her late 40s with sharp glasses and sharper instincts. "This is the original deed," Delia said, sliding over the document Lorraine had kept in that lockbox for decades. "Properly notarized, authentic seal, filed in '85, and the trust deed?" the supervisor asked. "Forged," Delia said flatly. "Filed while the legal owner was in the ICU, intubated and unconscious." The supervisor leaned in, flipping the fraudulent document under a light. "Bad copy. No raised stamp. Registry mismatch. We're requesting a formal correction to the title and a hold on all future transfers pending investigation." The woman nodded. "This gets flagged today. I'll notify the property appraiser's office and mark the deed contested. It won't process in any sale or refinance attempts until resolved." Delia tapped the table once, satisfied. "Make sure that flag's bright red." Back home, Lorraine stood at the end of her long, quiet driveway with a clipboard and a man in khakis, the appraiser. Independent, reputable, no connection to Ryan or Erica. "I want the house and the guest house assessed separately," Lorraine said. "Condition, square footage, recent improvements, full breakdown." The man adjusted his sunglasses. "Are you planning to sell?" "I'm planning to calculate damages," she replied. He nodded. No more questions. She followed him inside, letting him measure, photograph, and ask routine questions, while she recorded everything discreetly, every stain on the wall, every carpet, each note scribbled in her planner, marked by date and source. Later, as twilight sank over Sarasota and porch lights blinked on one by one, Lorraine sat on the front steps beside Clay, her back straight despite the long day. "They laughed at her," Clay said, passing her a sealed envelope, "the county's preliminary report." "They underestimated her," Lorraine corrected. From the guest house, muffled voices rose again, Ryan and Erica arguing. She could only make out fragments. "Lawyer, appraisal, fraud, not our fault." Clay looked toward the noise. "They sound cornered." "Cornered people do two things," Lorraine said, eyes fixed ahead. "They bolt, or they bite." She stood, brushing off her skirt. "Let's see which kind they are." The locksmith arrived just after sunrise. A thin man with quiet hands and a respectful nod. He didn't ask why every lock needed to be changed. He just got to work. Lorraine stood by the door in a pale cardigan and sandals, arms folded. "Every entry, mailbox 2, recade or full replacements?" he asked. "Knew everything." As the man unscrewed the brass deadbolt from her front door, Lorraine opened her planner and marked the time. 7:04 a.m., breach prevention begins. By mid-morning, every lock was changed. The mailbox at the curb had a new key. The back door had a new deadbolt. The garage keypad reset. And just above the doorframe, a new video doorbell blinked to life, silently watching. Inside, a local alarm technician programmed a full system entry chimes, motion detectors, and a control panel tucked discreetly inside the hall closet. The system chirped once, armed. Harper arrived around noon with a backpack slung over one shoulder and a look of cautious guilt on her face. Lorraine met her at the front door and didn't say a word. She just stepped aside. Harper stood in the entryway, looking around like she was seeing it all for the first time. The tidy bookshelf, the familiar scent of lavender and lemon polish, the newly recaded doorknob beneath her palm. "I didn't know it got this bad," she said quietly. "I know," Lorraine replied. "That's why I'm letting you in now." Harper looked down at her shoes. "I kept thinking, maybe they were just helping. Maybe it was just temporary. They were hoping I wouldn't live long enough for it to matter." Harper nodded, her throat tight. "Can I stay? Just for the weekend?" Lorraine stepped closer and gently touched her arm. "You can stay until you remember where you came from." Harper blinked. then smiled through a blur of shame and relief. Lorraine opened the door slowly, only as far as the chain would allow. Ryan stood outside in a tight polo shirt and forced grin. "You really think this is going to fix anything?" She didn't answer. "You've changed the locks, installed cameras, started acting like we're criminals." Lorraine unlatched the chain and stepped out, closing the door behind her. "I don't act like anything, I document." Ryan's smile turned sharp. "You're turning Harper against us." "I didn't turn her," Lorraine said. She walked, his jaw twitched. "This is still my family, my house, my trust." "It's not your house," she snapped, eyes locking onto his. "It never was." Ryan stepped closer, voice dropping. "You don't want to escalate this." Lorraine didn't flinch. "You already did." Behind them a camera clicked. Clay stood at the edge of the lawn, holding up a compact DSLR, lens glinting in the twilight. "I'd suggest you lower your voice, Ryan," Clay said calmly. "The mic on this thing's pretty good. Picks up lies real crisp." Ryan froze. Lorraine didn't smile. She didn't need to. "I believe that concludes your visit," she said. Ryan turned and stalked down the walkway, fists clenched at his sides. Lorraine walked back inside, closed the door and reset the alarm. That night, Harper stood at the upstairs window, watching the guest house. A sliver of light glowed behind the curtain. She turned to Lorraine, who stood beside her, holding a mug of warm milk. "What if they don't back off?" Harper whispered. "They won't," Lorraine said. "Not yet. Then what happens?" Lorraine exhaled slowly, her voice soft and steady. "Then we let them make the next mistake." Harper turned back toward the glass, and for the first time her fear narrowed into focus. The notice came in a stiff white envelope with the Sarasota County seal in the upper corner. Lorraine didn't open it in the kitchen. She took it to the study, where the air was still and the lockbox sat beside the original deed. She sliced it open with her old letter opener, the one Clay had given her decades ago. Inside, the court's approval. Ejectment granted. Ryan and Erica had 30 days to vacate the guest house. Legally, formally, irrevocably. She didn't smile. She just folded the paper once and placed it beside her planner. Then she called the sheriff's department to request a civil officer for formal delivery. A uniformed officer stepped out, envelope in hand, and made the short walk to the guest house's front door. Lorraine watched from the window. Not hidden, just still. Ryan answered the knock. The officer said something quietly, handed over the envelope, and nodded once. Ryan stood frozen, staring at the document like it might catch fire in his hands. Erica stepped outside in slippers, mascara smudged, eyes wide. She grabbed the paper from him, scanned it, and let out a strangled gasp. No, this isn't. This can't be legal." Harper was sitting on the porch steps of the main house, a paperback forgotten in her lap. She looked up at the sound of her mother's voice. Erica spotted her. Her face twisted. She stormed across the lawn barefoot, waving the paper like a white flag dipped in gasoline. "She's throwing us out," she said, tears rising. "Your grandmother is actually throwing us out." Harper didn't move. She just looked at her. "Say something," Erica snapped. "This is insane. You live in her house now and you're fine with this." Harper stood, calm and unshaken. "I didn't choose sides," she said. "I saw the truth." Erica's breath caught. For the first time, she looked like she might actually collapse. But Harper stepped back, and the door to the main house opened before she could take another step. Lorraine stood there, arms crossed. Erica turned away without another word. The next morning, Lorraine unlocked the guest house for the first time in months. It smelled faintly of mildew and some kind of synthetic cologne. The windows were streaked, the floor scuffed. Furniture she didn't recognize had replaced her things. She moved through the rooms slowly, documenting everything. A split in the crown molding, a cabinet door that wouldn't shut, 2 burns in the carpet near the kitchenette. She took photos, one by one, time-stamped, geotagged, every flaw recorded like a wound. In the bathroom she paused. There, in the sink basin, was a crusted ring of what looked like dye or paint, thick, grayish, dried. She turned on the tap. It sputtered once, then ran clear. She stepped back and wrote in her planner, "Interior damage logged. Unit neglected. Willful misuse." Outside, she met Clay near the garage. "They break anything worth noting?" he asked. "Enough to cost them." She handed him the camera. "Back these up. Delia will need Later that night, Lorraine sat at the kitchen table while Delia reviewed the folder of evidence. Photos, notes, cost estimates from a contractor friend who'd already toured the damage. "This goes in the motion," Delia said. "Restitution full, and I'll petition for court-ordered repayment once we finalize the title correction." Lorraine nodded. "No half measures." Delia looked at her. "You sure about publishing a record of this?" "I'm not just reclaiming the house," Lorraine said. "I'm cleaning it." From the guest house a light flicked on, then off again. Harper stood at the hallway window, arms crossed. "They're not packing," she said. "No," Lorraine replied, her voice low. "They're waiting for something." "What?" "Permission to keep pretending." Harper looked at her, a question forming. But then, a loud thud echoed from the guest house. Not like a box falling. Heavier, like someone knocking over the past itself. Lorraine's jaw. The USB was still where Clay had left it, taped to the underside of the birdhouse outside the kitchen window, just beneath the perch where the cardinals liked to land. Lorraine peeled it free with careful fingers, brought it inside, and slid it into her laptop. A folder popped open. RJ Trust Docs, backup. Lorraine clicked once, and the silence in the room grew taut. Inside were PDFs, screenshots, and one draft email still saved as a .docx file. She opened the email first. Subject: how to get her to sign without knowing. There was no recipient yet, just a salutation. "Babe, if we prep her with the meds after her evening dose, she might not remember. All she has to do is sign the pages in yellow tab. If you play it like hospital billing, she won't even think twice." Lorraine blinked once. The nausea that followed didn't come from shock. It came from recognition. They hadn't just waited for her to weaken. They had designed the fall. Delia sat in Lorraine's kitchen, 15 minutes later, reading the same screen. She leaned in, lips pressed into a thin, white line. "This is better than a confession," she whispered. "This is collusion, premeditated manipulation. And it ties them both." Lorraine turned the screen toward her. "You think it's admissible?" Delia nodded. "Oh, absolutely. Metadata shows the file was last edited 3 days before your ICU stay. And the other documents, look at this." She opened a screenshot. A notarized title transfer, except the notary field had been edited in Photoshop. You could see the layers if you zoomed in far enough. Another showed the trust document with Lorraine M. Willis copy-pasted from a scanned version of her will. For Jergy. Clear digital, with fingerprints all over it. Delia picked up her phone. "I'm forwarding everything to the investigator assigned to the Property Fraud Task Force. Ryan's already flagged. This will fast-track the case." Lorraine watched her dial the number with the precision of a surgeon. That evening, Clay stood with her near the curb, as the last of the day's light bled orange across the street. Lorraine handed him the printed documents. Emails, screenshots, metadata logs, all neatly clipped. "It's enough now, isn't it?" she asked. Clay nodded. "More than enough. You could bury them in this." Lorraine looked out toward the guest house. "They're still pretending it didn't happen. So stop giving them the luxury of silence." Clay reached into his back pocket and pulled out the legal notices section of the Sarasota Daily Reporter. "Put it in ink, right beside the divorce filings and zoning disputes. Let the county see who they really are." The next morning, Lorraine met the legal paper's publishing clerk in a lobby that smelled of toner and cold coffee. She handed over the notarized summary, the fraud report, and the approval from the court, allowing public notice to be filed. The woman scanned it, then looked up. "This'll run for 3 issues. Legal fraud, forged deed. The usual." "Their full names," Lorraine said. "No abbreviations. The clerk raised an eyebrow, but nodded. You're the property owner. You decide how loud you want the ink. Lorraine handed over her card. I want it loud enough that even their shame can hear it. She walked up the front steps and into the kitchen, where Lorraine was reading by the window. This paper, it's... Lorraine looked up. Yes. Harper sat across from her, the pages rustling like dry leaves. So everyone will know? They already suspect, Lorraine said. Now they'll understand. Harper stared at her. Won't they retaliate? I'm counting on it, Lorraine said. Because their next move is the one they can't walk back from. A sound faint metal against wood. Lorraine didn't move. She reached slowly for the audio recorder on the table, clicked it on, and whispered, "They're about to show me what they really are." The email arrived at 6:42 a.m., while the dew was still drying on the mailbox, and the guest house sat in blackout silence. Lorraine opened it on her laptop, with a deliberate click. Subject line, title correction processed, confirmation of ownership. She leaned in. There it was, in black and white, her name, owner of record, Lorraine M. Willis. Filing date, corrected and confirmed. Recorded by county clerk. Previous filing status, voided, deed contested and invalidated. Lorraine didn't exhale. She simply nodded once and clicked print. The document slid from the printer with a satisfying hiss. Her name, her legacy, was once again where it belonged. At 8:03 a.m., Harper burst through the front door still in her college hoodie and leggings, clutching a white document frame in both hands. I picked it up at the campus bookstore, she said breathlessly, holding it up. The kind they use for diplomas. Lorraine raised an eyebrow. That what this is now? Harper grinned and slid the freshly printed deed into the frame. It's a degree in survival. Lorraine took it in her hands, the frame still warm from Harper's touch. She looked down at the official seal, her name gleaming under the glass, like a war medal. I don't need it in the living room, she said softly. It belongs where the lie began. She hung it in the study, just above the filing cabinet. Ryan once offered to organize. The framed page cast a soft reflection in the daylight. A mirror of defiance. Proof of staying, Lorraine murmured. Later that afternoon, the doorbell rang. A hesitant chime, no knocking, no raised voices. Lorraine answered to find Erica standing on the porch, in a cardigan far too light for the cold front moving in. Her mascara was clean this time, her lips bare, no wine glass in hand, just desperation. Can we talk? She asked. Lorraine didn't step aside. I know you don't owe me anything, Erica rushed on. But the paper, the legal listing, it's humiliating. Harper won't even look at me. Ryan's lawyer won't take his calls now. Lorraine said nothing. I didn't mean for it to go this far, Erica whispered, blinking back tears. I didn't know half of what he was planning. He told me it was just to protect the house, in case you passed. Still, Lorraine said nothing. I'm begging you. Just drop the charges. End this. The wind tugged gently at Lorraine's sweater. She glanced over Erica's shoulder toward the garden she hadn't tended in months, then turned and closed the door without a word. Clay found her an hour later in the study, a mug of tea untouched beside her, and the framed deed glowing under the afternoon light. He set a brown envelope on her desk, stamped from the clerk of court. Official certification, he said. It's final. No more appeals, no pending notes. You're clean on record. Lorraine didn't look up from her tea. She begged me. Clay pulled up a chair beside her. And you didn't answer. She doesn't deserve an answer. He leaned back, folding his arms. Let them starve on the silence. Lorraine finally smiled. Not out of triumph. Out of freedom. Out of freedom. That night Harper returned from class and placed a thumbtack into the corkboard above her desk in the guest room. The copy of the Sarasota Daily Reporter now creased from being reread. She circled one line in pen, fraudulent deed invalidated. Original title holder restored, Lorraine M. Willis. She turned toward the hallway, the soft sound of piano music drifting faintly from the study. And then, from outside, the crunch of gravel, a car door, footsteps, fast, angry. Harper's breath hitched. She walked to the stairwell, where Lorraine stood frozen at the doorframe, one hand already on the security panel. The video doorbell lit up with motion. On the screen, Ryan, hair uncombed, shirt wrinkled, something in his hand, not rage, not regret, something else. The mediation room at the county courthouse was plain, windowless, fluorescent lit, and humming faintly with the buzz of overworked ceiling lights. A long wooden table divided the space like a line in sand. Lorraine sat at one end, her hands folded, face unreadable. Delia sat beside her, calm, collected, her briefcase already open. A printed stack of documentation, bound neatly in black, waited at her fingertips. Across the table, Ryan shifted in his chair. He looked different, paler, slightly unshaven. The arrogance hadn't vanished. It had just curdled into something quieter, calculating. Arca sat beside him, shoulders drawn tight, her nails bitten raw. She didn't look up. The court-appointed mediator, a woman in her 50s with round glasses and a cautious tone, cleared her throat. We are here to explore potential resolution options before full prosecution proceeds. Each side will have a chance to present terms. Lorraine didn't speak. She didn't look at Ryan. Her eyes remained fixed on the tabletop, steady. Ryan cleared his throat. Look, we've all had misunderstandings. Nobody's saying things weren't mishandled, but I'm willing to walk away. Now, no contest, if this all ends here. Delia blinked slowly. You think walking away erases the crime? Ryan gave a stiff smile. It's about resolution, isn't it? No one wants this to drag out. We're offering peace. Delia leaned forward, voice soft but scalpel sharp. We don't settle with thieves, Mr. Jameson. Lorraine raised her head, eyes finally meeting his. You didn't walk in with peace, she said. You walked in with a pen and a plan, and I nearly didn't wake up to stop it. Ryan opened his mouth, then shut it again. Lorraine pushed her chair back just enough to shift the air in the room. I'm not recovering anymore, she said. I'm rebuilding. After the session adjourned, the judge, a seasoned man with tired eyes and a silver tie, caught Ryan near the exit. I'd advise you to retain actual legal counsel, he said quietly, because what's coming isn't a civil squabble anymore. It's criminal. Ryan's jaw clenched. The judge kept walking. Outside, the courthouse steps were slick from last night's rain. Lorraine stood under a canopy of oaks, breathing in air that no longer felt borrowed. Delia checked her phone. Criminal division's already moved your case up the docket. Ryan's name will hit the pre-trial register this week. Lorraine nodded. Good. No more shadows. From a few feet away, Harper approached, her backpack slung loosely over one shoulder. She looked between them, then pulled something from her pocket. A folded letter. I sent in my transfer request, she said. Lorraine looked at her. Transfer? From Gainesville to Sarasota, Harper said. They have a sister campus here. Smaller. But I want to stay close. Delia raised an eyebrow. Lorraine said nothing for a beat. Are you sure? Lorraine asked. I'm not leaving you with them still on this property, Harper said. And I'm not watching from the outside anymore. Lorraine smiled. Then you're exactly where you belong. Back at the house, the wind picked up. Leaves danced across the porch as Lorraine stepped inside, the framed deed still glowing faintly in the study behind her. Clay sat at the kitchen table, sorting through envelopes. He glanced up. How'd he take it? Like a man who thought the mirror would lie, Lorraine said. He chuckled. And the judge? Didn't blink. Clay nodded, tapping the last envelope. This came while you were out. Lorraine took it and flipped it over. No return address, just her name, handwritten in a script she recognized too well. Ryan's. She opened it slowly. Inside, a single photograph. Her signature, lifted, reproduced, circled in red ink. Underneath it, scribbled in pencil, you can take back the paper. Let's see if you can take what's coming. Lorraine's handwriting hadn't changed much since 1979. Still crisp, still deliberate. Each curve a decision, not a guess. But this time, it was her name going at the top of every page. not the bottom. The estate attorney's office was warm and quiet, walls lined with dark oak bookshelves, and small framed photos of past clients shaking hands with justice. Lorraine sat at the end of a long polished desk, pen in hand, papers before her. "I want it rewritten from scratch," she said. The attorney, a soft-spoken woman named Kaminsky, nodded. "We'll start with the will, then assign executorship and durable POA. Same beneficiary?" "No," Lorraine replied, without flinching. "New name." Kaminsky glanced up, already sensing what Lorraine was about to say. "Harper Renee Jameson," Lorraine said. "Sole beneficiary, sole executor, and I want that filed today." When she got home, Harper was sitting on the porch with a textbook on her lap and an untouched coffee at her side. Lorraine stepped through the screen door and held out a small, neatly sealed envelope. Harper hesitated. "What's this?" Lorraine sat beside her. "You're the executor now," Harper blinked. "Wait. Of your?" "I redrafted everything," Lorraine said. "You're the future of this house, Harper, not them." Harper didn't speak. She just looked at the envelope like it was made of glass. "I don't know what to say." "You don't need to," Lorraine said. "Just keep it safe." Harper tucked it into her backpack. "Careful, Reverend." That weekend, Clay met Lorraine by the side of the guest house, toolbox in hand. The air smelled of cut grass and citrus blossoms, and the paint on the trim still held the golden glow of a late morning sun. "So," Clay said, peering up at the faded nameplate over the door, "you really want to rename it?" "Yes." "To what?" Lorraine handed him a plaque she'd had custom made. "Navy blue enamel, white script, the blue magnolia." Clay let out a low whistle. "Student rental now, safe, quiet housing, lease only, no favors, no hand-me-downs." Clay grinned. "And no thieves." Together they unscrewed the old numbers from the siding and bolted the new name into place. Inside, the guest house had been scrubbed clean. New fixtures, neutral furniture, a few soft throws and a basket of local maps, business cards and takeout menus. It felt honest again, unpretentious, fresh. Harper walked through, her fingers trailing along the armrest of the rue-upholstered sofa. "It looks different," she said. "It feels different," Lorraine replied. Harper glanced toward the window, where Ryan once stood with entitlement in his bones. "Are you sure it's safe, opening it to strangers again?" Lorraine looked at her and smiled. "I'm not opening it to strangers," she said. "I'm opening it to students who need a roof, not a loophole." That evening, Lorraine stood by the fireplace with Delia, who had just finished filing an order with the court. Her voice was matter of fact. "They're barred from managing your affairs, now or in the future. Durable restriction. Notarized. If they so much as try to speak on your behalf to a credit union, they'll get flagged." "Good," Lorraine said. "Let them disappear from the paperwork, just like they tried to do to me." Delia set a folder down gently. "You've closed every legal loop. What's next?" Lorraine looked toward the back of the house. "Peace." Then she paused. "And a small donation." Delia raised a brow. "To Sarasota Legal Aid, Elder Justice Division," Lorraine said. "In my will, and now." Delia's smile was faint but fierce. "Poetic." "No," Lorraine replied. "Practical." As night fell, Clay and Lorraine finished boxing up the last of Erica's things from the attic crawlspace of the guest house. Cheap jewelry, a half-used notebook, an unopened bottle of Chardonnay, with a sticky note that read, "Save for escrow day." Clay dropped it into a garbage bag without comment. "Tell me again why we're not burning this whole box," he muttered. Lorraine shrugged. "Some things deserve to rot in the dark, not burn in the light." He handed her a flashlight. "Then let's seal the crawl space." At 11:17 p.m., a new notification blinked on the doorbell cam. Lorraine opened the feed from her phone. The guest house porch was empty, but something new had been left on the steps. A ceramic angel head cracked, wings broken, resting on a page torn from her planner. No note, just one word carved into the base: "Watching." Harper didn't knock. She walked straight into the guest house, backpacks slung over one shoulder, the heels of her sneakers thudding softly on the hardwood floor. Erica was seated at the small kitchen table, swirling a glass of iced tea she hadn't touched. Ryan stood at the counter, hunched over his phone, tapping furiously. Neither looked up at first. Then Erica glanced up. Her smile was brittle. "Harper, finally. We were wondering if you were ever going to stop hiding behind her curtains." Harper didn't sit. "I'm moving in," she said. Erica blinked. "Into the guest house? Until I find something permanent," Lorraine offered. Ryan scoffed, not looking up. "That woman's poisoning your mind." Harper stepped further in, eyes calm but unwavering. "She didn't forge anything. You did." Erica stood up. "You're turning your back on your own parents?" "No," Harper said. "You turned your backs on me when you stole from her, when you lied, when you stood in this house, her house, and pretended to deserve it." Ryan slammed his phone down. "You're being manipulated." "No," Harper cut in. "I'm being liberated." There was a long silence. Erica's eyes flicked toward the cracked angel still sitting in the corner untouched. Her voice dropped. "She's turning you against us." Harper shook her head. "No, Mom. You did that all by yourself." Lorraine waited on the front porch of the main house, watching the conversation unfold through the living room camera feed. No sound, just body language. Harper's posture never broke. Her hands never trembled. When the feed showed the guest house door shutting softly behind her, Lorraine stepped inside and opened a drawer near the fireplace. She pulled out a white envelope. When Harper returned 5 minutes later, no backpack this time, Lorraine held it out without a word. Harper took it slowly, then unfolded the single sheet inside. Her name was handwritten at the top, and beneath it only one sentence: "When you're ready, this house is yours." Harper stared at it, her throat tightened. "I don't know if I'm ready." "You will be," Lorraine said. "And when you are, it won't be because anyone gave it to you. It'll be because you protected it." The next day, the county bulletin board lit up, online and physical copies alike. State v. Jameson, Ryan C., trial date set, December 12, criminal fraud, forgery, property deception. Clay handed Lorraine the printout over coffee. "He's got 4 felony counts and 2 misdemeanors. They're not playing games anymore." "Neither am I," Lorraine said. By noon, the neighbors began to talk. Not the loud kind of talk. The quiet, electric kind that lives in glances and lowered voices. People who used to wave politely at Erica now crossed the street. People who once called Ryan resourceful now said reckless behind his back. And those who had dismissed Lorraine as old-fashioned or fragile started leaving small things on her doorstep. A mason jar of homemade fig preserves. A handwritten card that simply read, "Glad you're still here." Harper walked past the mailbox and caught 2 women whispering at the corner. They went quiet when they saw her, then nodded awkwardly. She walked back to the blue magnolia without a word. That evening, Harper sat on the guest house porch, legs curled up beneath her. Lorraine brought out 2 mugs of peppermint tea and set one down without interrupting the silence. Harper finally asked, "Do you regret not having a bigger family?" Lorraine sipped her tea. "No. I regret thinking I ever needed more than what I have now." Harper looked at her. "I'm sorry it took me this long to get here." Lorraine smiled gently. "You got here exactly when you were supposed to." A breeze rustled the magnolia leaves, the newly painted sign above the door creaking faintly. Then from inside the main house, Lorraine's phone buzzed. A message from Delia. "Detectives want to speak again. They've found something new." Lorraine stood slowly, tea forgotten. She looked at Harper. "Keep the light on." The courtroom was cold, not just from the air conditioning, but from the kind of chill that came from knowing the next hour would leave someone stripped bare. Lorraine sat in the front row of the gallery, hands resting on her lap, her back straight, not stiff. Her scarf matched the gray-blue of her blouse. No jewelry, no dramatics, just gravity. Ryan sat at the defense table in a wrinkled navy blazer, jaw clenched. His lawyer whispered something that didn't land. Erica sat behind him, eyes red, lips bitten raw. No makeup this time. No pretense. Harper was beside Lorraine, her hand close but not yet touching. The judge entered. A tall man, flanked by carved oak, his robe as simple as his voice was firm. "We are here today for sentencing in the matter of State v. Jameson," he began. "Counts 1 through 4, felony fraud and forgery. Counts 5 and 6, financial impersonation and misrepresentation of durable authority." The room went still. The prosecutor stood first, listing the offenses: the falsified documentation, the email drafts, the notary forgery, the trust deception. He used words like coordinated manipulation, willful premeditation, elder targeting. Ryan stared at the table. Then the judge looked up. "Ms. Willis," he said, "you requested the right to speak before sentencing. Do you still wish to?" Lorraine rose slowly. Her voice was clear, not loud, not shaking. "I do." She stepped forward. The courtroom turned with her. "I was silent in recovery," she said. "I was hooked to machines, half lost in medication, while the people I once welcomed into my home tried to erase my name from it." Ryan shifted in his seat. Lorraine didn't look at him. "I don't speak today out of bitterness," she said. "I speak because there are women my age, all over this country, who will never get this moment. They'll lose everything: their homes, their wills, their voices, to family who confuse access with ownership." She paused. "I was nearly one of them." Now she looked directly at Ryan. "But you made one mistake. You thought surviving and fighting were two different things." She stepped back. Silence followed like respect. The judge nodded once. "Thank you, Ms. Willis." He shuffled his notes, then looked to Ryan. "Mr. Jameson, by the court's authority and in accordance with state statute, you are sentenced to 5 years of probation, court supervised, including 2,000 hours of community restitution work and full financial repayment to the victim in the amount of $37,000. Any attempt to delay or violate terms will trigger automatic custodial review." Erica let out a strangled sound behind him, part sob, part breath, and covered her face. No one reached for her. Ryan didn't speak. Not to the court. Not to the judge. Not even to his lawyer. Harper leaned closer to Lorraine and gently wrapped her fingers around hers. "You didn't just survive," she whispered. "You won." Lorraine looked down at her hand, then toward the bench. "I just made sure the story didn't end without me." The gavel struck once, final and clear. Outside, the courthouse steps glinted under the sharp Florida sun. Lorraine didn't stop. As she walked, she didn't glance back. The doors closed behind her with the soft hush of chapter's end. On the sidewalk, neighbors waited. Not for drama, not for spectacle, just to watch her pass. She nodded once politely, then turned to Harper. "I'd like to go home." "Of course," Harper said. As they reached the car, Lorraine's phone buzzed. A new voicemail, from a blocked number. She put the phone to her ear. A distorted voice. Familiar, breathy. "You think it's over. It isn't. You buried one name, but not all of us." She lowered the phone. Harper frowned. "Spam?" "No," Lorraine said, slipping it into her bag. She looked past the parking lot, toward the distance. "It's the sound of something that doesn't know it's already lost." The frame was simple. Walnut wood, brass corners, glare-resistant glass. Nothing flashy. Nothing that begged attention. Inside it, the original deed, dated June 3rd. Lorraine hung it by the front door, just above the light switch, where sun from the west window caught the embossed seal at just the right angle. Anyone who walked in or out would see it. No one would ever question again whose name belonged here. Across the hall, Harper's suitcases stood empty, her books already shelved in the upstairs bedroom she used to visit, only on long weekends. She had switched to the Sarasota campus quietly, efficiently, just like she had switched allegiance. That morning she pinned her new class schedule to the corkboard above her desk. Pre-law, focus, elder justice. "Feels like a loop," she said aloud, smiling at the thought. The guest house, now labeled clearly as the Blue Magnolia, welcomed its first tenant that week, a second-year nursing student from Georgia with soft-spoken manners and meticulous references. She signed the lease, paid her deposit in cash, and thanked Lorraine for offering a place that feels like it listens. Lorraine gave her a spare key and said only, "Respect it and it'll keep you." She wasn't being poetic. In the weeks that followed, Lorraine planted new rosemary and sage in the garden beds. She trimmed the hedges herself. She repaired the chipped stepping stone that led to the mailbox, the one Ryan had nearly kicked loose that summer. When neighbors waved now, they meant it. When they stopped by, they brought stories instead of gossip. The house, once a stage for quiet betrayal, had become something quieter still, whole. One afternoon, Clay brought over a flat of begonias and a lemon tart he claimed was from scratch, but clearly wasn't. They sat on the porch in the slant of golden light, sipping sweet tea from jars and listening to a radio that hadn't played in years. "You really brought it back," Clay said, nodding toward the garden, the walkway, the house. Lorraine didn't answer immediately. Then she turned slightly, her eyes tracing the edge of the porch where Harper had once sat, curled with guilt in her bones. "It was never gone," she said. "Just bruised." Clay glanced at the framed deed in the front window. "Still got your name on." Lorraine's smile was slow but deep. "And always will." Behind them, Harper stepped out onto the porch, a textbook under one arm, her hair up, her face clean and bright. "Grandma," she said. "Yes? Do you mind if I use the guest house study for my mock trial note? The desk there feels clearer." Lorraine's eyes lit. "Of course, that's exactly what it's for now." As Harper disappeared down the steps, Clay chuckled. "You know she's never leaving, right?" "She's home," Lorraine said. "Why would she?" The breeze picked up, stirring the wind chime Clay had rehung last spring. It sounded brighter now, lighter. Later that evening, Lorraine lit a single candle in the front window, sat back in her favorite chair, and opened her planner for the first time in days. She flipped to the back. One final page, blank. She uncapped a pen. The ink was black, the kind that doesn't fade, and in a clean, careful line she wrote, "They signed me out of my life, and I signed it right back in permanent ink."